And the consensus was that a tennis player would never do that because you don't want to bulk up.
Dick Stockton, a tennis legend, found himself under a storm of criticism during the 1979 Wimbledon Final. A moment meant to be his crowning glory instead brought him unexpected backlash. But the troubles didn't stop there. His coaching style, bold and unconventional, sparked waves of controversy, dividing fans and players alike. The spotlight didn't just stay on the court either. Stockton's personal life made headlines, pulling his private struggles into the public eye and adding fuel to the fire. But before we begin, make sure to subscribe. During the 1979 Wimbledon Final, Dick Stockton faced not only the immense pressure of playing against Bjorn Borg, but also the eyes of spectators who soon started to question his actions. As the match went on, Stockton became increasingly vocal about the line calls, stopping play several times to challenge the decisions. Every close call seemed to turn into a mini debate, with Stockton passionately contesting the rulings. For some fans watching, it felt like Stockton was trying to throw Borg off his rhythm. But the real controversy hit when Stockton took an unusually long bathroom break after losing the third set. By then, the momentum was clearly with Borg, and many felt Stockton's extended absence was more than just about needing a break. It was a way to stall Borg and disrupt his flow. Some spectators started murmuring in the stands, wondering if this was all part of Stockton's strategy. Gamesmanship, they called it. Even though it's not uncommon in high-stakes matches for players to try and gain any small edge, this felt different to many watching that day. When Stockton finally returned, the match resumed, and Borg, with his famous calm and focus, ultimately won. But despite the clear outcome, the whole thing left an odd, almost sour feeling for some of those who'd witnessed it. It wasn't just about Stockton losing to Borg. It was the way the match unfolded, with those constant disputes over calls and that mysterious break that made people talk. Even though Borg walked away the victor, Stockton's actions that day left a lasting impression, casting a shadow over what could have simply been a hard-fought battle between two tennis giants. Stockton's life off the court was almost as talked about as his skills on it. He wasn't just a tennis player dealing with tough matches. His personal life became a spectacle all on its own. People were no longer just talking about Stockton the tennis player. They were gossiping about Stockton the person, Stockton the husband, Stockton the father. And no matter how well he played, it seemed the public couldn't help but see him through the lens of his personal life, judging him for things that had nothing to do with his career. The fame he'd worked so hard for became a double-edged sword, and his private battles often threatened to overshadow everything he'd accomplished. It was a heavy price to pay for being in the spotlight, and it left Stockton navigating not only the pressures of his sport, but also the unyielding scrutiny of the public eye. When Dick Stockton took on the role of head coach for the men's tennis team at the University of Virginia, people had high expectations. Stockton had been a star on the court, and many thought he'd bring that same success to coaching. But his time there, from 1998 to 2001, was anything but smooth. Stockton's coaching style was intense, really intense. He was tough, he was demanding, and he pushed his players hard. In his mind, he was just trying to bring out the best in them to help them reach their full potential. But not everyone on the team saw it that way. Some players found his approach overwhelming. They felt he set standards that were almost impossible to meet, and that his criticism could be harsh. To Stockton, this was just part of the game, part of what it took to succeed at a high level. He'd been there himself and knew how much effort and discipline it took to really make it in the tennis world. But to these young players, it sometimes felt like too much. As the season went on, tension started brewing. There were whispers of dissatisfaction, players feeling frustrated or even burned out. Some struggled with the pressure and felt that the intensity was taking away the joy they'd once had for the game. Conflicts began bubbling up, not just between Stockton and the players, but within the team itself. Some players were on board with his methods, believing that his tough love approach would make them stronger. Others felt like they were being pushed beyond their limits and that the demands were doing more harm than good. In the end, Stockton's coaching left a mixed legacy. He wanted to build champions, but his methods divided the team and raised questions about where the line should be between pushing players and overwhelming them. His time at the University of Virginia wasn't just about wins and losses. It became a debate about how far a coach should go to bring out the best in their players and whether his intense approach was worth the toll it took on the team. It's a story that still has people talking about Stockton, not just as a coach, but as a complex figure who pushed the limits, sometimes at a cost. Stockton's journey in tennis started in the bustling streets of New York City, where he was born on February 18, 1951. But it was down in San Antonio at Trinity University that he really found his footing. There, he not only earned a BA in sociology in 1972, but he also made quite the name for himself on the court. Stockton was a tennis powerhouse, achieving All-America honors 4 times. His coach, Clarence Mabry, played a huge role in his development, helping him launch into a successful pro career, and even inspiring him to one day become a coach himself. As a pro, Stockton reached some impressive heights. Ranked as high as number 8 in the world, he made waves on the international tennis scene. In 1974, he reached the singles semifinals at Wimbledon, and in 1978, he did the same at the French Open. But his standout year was 1977. He took down Jimmy Connors to win the U.S. Pro Indoor title, made it to the final of the WCT Dallas Finals, and earned himself a spot in the world's top 10 rankings. Stockton was also a regular on the U.S. Davis Cup team, representing his country 5 times and even being part of the 1979 championship team. One of his career highlights was winning the French Open mixed doubles title in 1984 with Ann Smith, a fellow tennis great. Even after retiring from the main tour, Stockton kept competing. In 1999, he made it to the 45 and over doubles semifinals at Wimbledon with Jaime Fillo. That same year, he teamed up with Tom Gullickson to win the U.S. Open Men's Masters 45s doubles title. Once he stepped away from pro tennis, Stockton stayed close to the game. He worked at the T-Bar M Racket Club in Dallas for a time before joining the University of Virginia in 1998 as the head coach for the men's tennis team. Coaching was a challenging chapter for him, and by 2001, he'd moved on to Florida, where he worked at the Delray Beach Tennis Center. But Stockton wasn't done giving back. In 2008, he and his wife started a foundation aimed at sharing their love for tennis with those who serve. They began offering free tennis clinics at military bases across the country, bringing the sport to service members and their families. Stockton's life, from his days on the court to his work in coaching and beyond, has been about passion, perseverance, and passing on his love for the game to the next generation. Well, that brings us to the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe to Tennis Court Icons for more such videos.